To find out what Section 1 theft is, you are in the right place. During this presentation, you will learn what the points to prove are and how they apply to different scenarios. Knowledge and application of theft is crucial for your summative assessment. It will also be an offence that you will need to know for your role as a police officer. The offence of theft is found under Section 1 of the Theft Act 1968. There are 5 points to prove for this offence, and one way to remember this would be the 5 points on a star. So you have dishonestly appropriates property belonging to another with the intention to permanently deprive. All of these elements must be present or the offence is incomplete and there is no theft. So if we look at dishonesty and find that someone is not dishonest, then guess what? There is no theft. Let's take each element on its own to explore this further. Before we determine if someone has committed theft, we need to see if they aren't actually dishonest. Section 2 lists 3 examples where someone would not be classed as being dishonest. Section 2, subsection 1a states that a person is not dishonest if they have the belief that they had the legal right to do so for themselves or another person. So let's look at the case of Robinson. This is where the defendant took money from the victim, believing that the victim owed him money. In this case, it wouldn't be theft as they are not dishonest. Another example could be if you took an umbrella from a restaurant, believing it to be your sister's umbrella. This would not be dishonest as you take it in the belief you have a legal right to do so as you believe it belongs to your sister. So in this instance, as you are not dishonest, you wouldn't commit theft of the umbrella. Even if it turns out that it actually wasn't your sister's, it belonged to the restaurant owner. The second example is found under Section 2, subsection 1b, where someone is not dishonest if the other person would have consented had they known the circumstances. So, for example, have you ever woken up, gone to make a cup of tea, and you've ran out of milk? You're running late to your lecture, so you don't want to get in trouble by me, but you really want a coffee. You use a bit of your flatmate's milk instead, intending to replace it later on, knowing that your flatmate would have agreed, so would have consented, as it's something that you commonly do. You wouldn't be dishonest, so luckily for you, there wouldn't be any theft. So you can now breathe a sigh of relief that you haven't been committing theft for all this time. And lastly, under Section 2, subsection 1c, the person to whom it belonged could not be found by taking reasonable steps. In this, you need to think, is it too difficult to find the owner? So, question time. Please think of an answer. If you found a wallet on a bus, what steps would you personally take to find the owner? Hopefully, you may have considered handing it in to the driver, handing it into a police station, or perhaps even uploading it onto a Neighbourhood Watch Facebook site to see if anyone can identify the owner. They would be classed as quite reasonable steps to take in those circumstances. So a quick recap then. We've just looked at the 3 reasons which make someone not dishonest. Pause this video and write them down. See if you can remember them. If you can't, rewind this clip to refresh your memory. So hopefully you remembered what makes someone not dishonest. So if you're working through a problem and they don't fit within those 3 categories, then we will need to see if they are dishonest. The test of dishonesty actually lies with the jury. Firstly, they consider as part of their fact-finding duty the defendant's knowledge or belief as to what was going on. So in other words, what made the defendant act as they did. They will then apply the standards of ordinary, reasonable people to judge that behaviour. And that was found in the case of R versus Barton and Booth 2020. So, a scenario for you. What if someone picks up two jumpers out of a store, walks out and is stopped by the security guard as they are leaving? At that point, they say, sorry, I have the money to pay, I'll go and do that now. Do you think that is theft? Do you think they are dishonest? So say that answer out loud. What do you think? So they've changed their mind, they've said sorry, they haven't managed to get home with the items or leave the shopping centre. They've changed their mind. So what do we think? So well done if you said that they are still dishonest. The Act states under Section 2, subsection 2, that they may be dishonest despite the fact that they are willing to pay for it. Because at that point when they've left the store, all of the elements of theft have been proved. They are dishonest even if they then, as soon as they get out of the store, they're stopped by the security guard and they say, okay, fine, hold my hands up, I did it, but I'll pay for the items now. At that point, it doesn't matter because they are dishonest. They've taken the items and all of the theft elements have been proven. Section 3 appropriates. Appropriation is defined as any assumption by a person of the rights of an owner. Acting as an owner means having the ability to do whatever you like with the property. So for example, if you touch it, destroy it, give it to another person, sell it, and even offering to sell it. These are things that owners do with their property. So another scenario for you to think about. What about picking up food in Sainsbury's? So just like Spider-Man's doing, would he be guilty of theft because he simply picks up the Uncle Ben's rice? Have a think. We said earlier on that an appropriation is defined as an assumption by a person of the rights of an owner. So for example, touching something. Would Spider-Man simply touching that Uncle Ben's rice amount to theft? The answer to that is it depends. If you satisfy the other points to prove, then yes, you will be guilty. But simply touching it, picking it up, putting it in your basket, and then going to a checkout and paying for it wouldn't be theft because you haven't done it dishonestly. Unless you exit the store and you haven't paid for it and you've gone beyond that point of paying. If you do pay for it though, then as soon as you pay for that item, you then become the owner. So it's absolutely fine for you to go around the supermarket and put different items in your basket. You would not have committed theft unless you walked out of that store and didn't pay for it. Another scenario, very lucky. A person goes to the local library and gets a book out to read. Later, they decide to put that book on their bookshelf at home and not return it to the library. Do they appropriate property even if they only borrowed that book originally? So the answer is at the point where they decide to not return that library book and put it on their shelf and keep it, they are appropriating that book because they are treating it as their own property. So in this instance, it would be theft.